Short this evening with actually committee members, but
we've got enough.
We'll go through the apologies. So first of all, ladies and gentlemen, we've got to select a new chairman.
Could I just, before you all start, just to let everybody know we're being recorded and filmed tonight. So if anybody's got any objections, they'll have to leave. I'm sorry, the gentleman is entitled to a video and record, just to let you know.
Yeah. Right. Right. Has anyone actually for election of to be the chair?
I've had no nominations at all.
Yeah. Chris?
I haven't got the time to do it justice.
Bill?
No, I haven't got time.
Rebecca?
I was hoping to step further back. No.
Right, so we'll have to, yeah.
Well, you're in the chair as vice chair at the moment,
Yeah.
so we can defer that to
Yes, you can just take
when we've
it.
got more
Yeah.
members.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've got no members that are willing to stand at the
Anyone's a
moment.
younger member than me, anyway.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right, apologies for absentees. And then
Yes,
we've got
Chair, I've got several. I've got one from County Councillor Peter Bedford, and I circulated a copy of his report.
Yeah.
I've also got apologies from Councillor Lay,
Yeah.
and again, his Borough Council report I circulated on email tonight. I've got apologies from Councillor St Peel, who's on holiday, and Councillor Crook, who's got childcare problems.
Yeah, okay. So that's why we're completing that. Yeah, right. And confirmation of the minutes for the extraordinary council
Sorry,
meeting.
Chair, can we just do declarations of interest in
Oh,
case
declarations of interest, sorry, I've got my thumb on that.
Chair, could I just record that I have started a part-time job with Melton Borough Council?
Yeah.
I don't think there are any direct links, but I just would rather it was transparent. Okay.
Yeah. Right, okay. Confirmation of the minutes for the extraordinary meeting on the 22nd of November. I read through them. I think they're fair representative. Was any other committee member actually?
I did circulate an amendment request from Lucy Taylor. I don't know if anybody wants to look at that.
I saw it, but obviously I wasn't at the meeting, so I can't contribute. Apologies.
Well, I think there's an actual fair representation of the meeting. You was there, Chris, wasn't you?
I was indeed, yes, Chair. I certainly felt that the second point made by former Councillor Taylor was a valid one. I felt that the first one was, as it's a meeting in closed session, we were always circumspect about the nature of the actual record of that. So I felt that was appropriate, what was actually minuted by the clerk.
Yeah.
So, again, for the committee to decide.
yeah, I agree.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
So what was the outcome of that?
I think the range was getting to it, weren't you? The action that we took on the second part.
Well, basically, if you look at the minute,
Yeah.
I just remind myself about it.
Have you got it?
Yeah, I know Councillor Lay proposed that we contacted our legal people about.
Yeah.
the transfer of undertaking regulations. But I wasn't instructed by him. He can't instruct me as an individual. It's got to be an instruction from the council, which is what it was in the end. I know it was his proposal that that's what we did to get clarification. And I think as a council you agreed that that was the correct course of action.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You weren't doing it. You was there, Bill, wasn't you? As well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and because of the nature of in private session, I don't think we should be naming the person, the specialist that Councillor Crook was going to speak to.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think that.
Yeah, because it was in private.
It was in private, and I don't think we should be naming people.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that.
But it's a matter for members whether they want to amend the minutes.
Bill?
No, it's fine with me.
No, we're fine with that.
What was recorded is right.
Yeah.
Well, we'll need a proposal for somebody to accept the minutes, and we'll need a seconder.
Oh, I don't think I can I? Because I don't think I was there.
You weren't there.
No, so I
It
can't.
was showing Bill and I. then.
Sorry, I can't do that.
So,
Chris said you wanted to, amend it, stuff like that.
Well, I simply put forward my
Or make
views
comments,
at the time, Chair. If we need somebody to propose the minutes, having listened to the discussions from other councils, I'm happy to propose the minutes
Yeah.
as they were. Now need seconding, I presume?
Yeah.
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 Okay, yeah.
is somebody seconding?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And then we just need a vote to say we're all in favour.
Yeah. Okay.
Right, we've got the actual public participation for 15 minutes. Anybody who've got anything to say from the public?
Yes.
Yeah, Margaret.
I've got a very quick one, if that's all right.
Yeah, Margaret.
I'm here on behalf of several Ratby Lane residents to make the council aware that there is a speculative land sale on the corner of Ratby Lane. Members will remember that it was the subject of the OWL application, if that makes any sense. Do you remember?
Yeah.
It's being marketed with several untruths, but let's be fair, that's not against the law for the estate agent, is it really? Councillor Lay and Councillor Bedford have both been made aware in their borough and county roles that there is this speculative land sale going on. We feel as residents, here we go again, because we've just emerged from a 2-year battle to stop the development on the corner. Can I say from the outset, we're not NIMBYs. I want to make that absolutely clear. It was turned down by Hinkley and Bosworth Borough Council, supported by the Parish Council, that it was unsustainable in open countryside. It was against the made neighbourhood plan, and it was way down the selection in the latest draft of Hinkley and Bosworth local plan, for what that is worth actually, but it was. This sale is speculative. Again, that's not against the law, but also we'd like the Parish Council in due course, should anything come of this site, to be aware of the creaking infrastructure. I think you're all aware that the mains water burst, and the gas went, and the electricity went, and the telephone lines went. So the Parish Council also spent, in my time, money and time on the covenant research. If you remember, there is a covenant on the land, which is there to protect the retirement village. And we understand already that one developer from Ashby has already tried to engage with your chair of planning, Councillor Crook. So we just wanted to bring that to the attention of the council, because we're not sure, what I'm sure your clerk will advise. So I guess basically what we're looking at is that, to put it bluntly, we hope that if there's any approach made to the parish council, A, in due course you will support us, and secondly, you'll send them packing. So I just wanted to say that, if that's okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, like all these actual proposals and things like that, they keep trying all the time, don't they, different avenues
Yes.
to get to it, and we've got to be very much aware of that.
Yeah.
Because we want to preserve our countryside.
We just wanted as residents for the parish council to be aware of what was going on. So thank you, Councillor Simpson. Thank you.
Thank you.
If I can just add, just before we move on to Stuart, just to say I saw the sign myself. EA Lanes, 20 dwellings. Is that the one on the corner?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, 20 down from 49's.
I
A
appreciate
bit of
it's a big
improvement.
drop from the original, but it's still pre-planning, so
Yeah.
you'll clearly understand the limitations of our influence in this process, but we can
sorry.
certainly make sure that we,
Sorry, the limitations.
of our influence, because we're not planning authority, it's the housing, it's the Hinkley Borough Council, but we can certainly.
There is no planning application in at the moment. This was purely
I
an
appreciate
awareness.
that. What I'm saying
Yeah.
is that, as you quite rightly said, it's a speculative application,
Yes, and we wanted to make the council aware of that.
and you've done so.
Thank you.
Stuart?
Who's running the Markfield Community Centre today? Who's the governing body? Who's in charge? Is it the parish council? Is it the charity? Or is it some other entity?
Well, this is all going forward because we've actually set up an actual trust for it. That is not in.
I think there's been some confusion. Can I try?
Yeah.
With it? The parish council were under the impression that they were the sole custodian and managing trustee for the charity. The building and the surrounding land is in the name of the Markfield Recreation Ground Trust. Now, because of the information that's been sent to me, I have been in contact with the Charity Commission to get clarification. So at the moment, it's kind of between a rock, devil and the deep blue sea, excuse me. So until I've had confirmation from the Charity Commission, it is the parish council that's temporarily running it while we sort out what's happening with the Markfield Recreation Ground Trust.
Yeah.
So just for the avoidance of doubt, the parish council are custodian trustees, not sole trustees. And by default, they are now managing trustees. So that needs to be extremely clear that when you go back to the original governance paperwork and actually look through it, it's extremely clear. And what I find quite alarming is that this is not new news. The people that sit around this table are well aware of what their obligations were when they started the action to take over the community centre and what needed to be done. And it's very apparent that quite a considerable number of the things that should have been done haven't been done, to the point that you've completely bypassed a number of representative members who should have the opportunity to sit on the Committee of Management under the Markfield Ground Recreational Trust. There's a question over any meetings ever being held in the recent time, so how, when you've sat in this session with me present, that you could ever propose that the charitable arm of the parish council can run the biggest asset in the village is just beyond me. Which leads me on to another point. Councillor Crook, it's no good looking at your watch, Edwin, I've got another 9 minutes.
All right.
Councillor Crook commissioned a report from a third-party expert. That third party did a report and he sent it to every individual council member to their own inboxes. He also gave advice on Thursday evening that the community centre shouldn't be open because of confusion over staffing, due pay and various other matters. That report has 32 policy and procedural breaches or non-compliances, some of which are health and safety, some of which are legislative, and some of which are just downright neglect. This council chose to open that centre in the full knowledge of those 32 non-compliances. And I would ask this council now, how many of those 32 non-compliances have they attended to, and how many are still in existence? Because some of them are pretty serious. I've also got from Councillor Crook in writing that he intends to open the community centre, and I'll quote, "I will keep the community centre open as a warm space and a safe haven and a community hub, above and less important expenses, and I will do that in a financially responsible way." I'd like to ask, on what mandate is he operating? Is that the belief of everybody that's sat around the table? Is that, or are you supporting that? And if you are supporting that, I would also ask how you can possibly operate a warm space and a safe haven and a community hub in a building that's got 32 procedural and health and safety non-compliances. I would question the legality of it, and I would also question the competence of it. I would also question how you come to that decision. Because at this moment in time, have you got a budget for how much it's going to cost you to run the place? And I suspect you haven't.
Oh, we have got some figures that we know how much it's going to cost, see it below, and things like that. But what you actually take into consideration there, that we took that place over, which we hadn't got any control over, and so we didn't know how poor a condition it was in.
You yourself, Councillor Silstone, walked in there on Friday morning and thanked the person who was there doing the report for taking over the building on behalf of the Parish Council.
No.
And that was witnessed by a number of people who were in the building at the time.
I was under the misrepresentation, because what you actually, you've hit a can of worms here, I know you have, and that's what you're trying to... Yeah.
No, I haven't hit a can of worms at all.
But let me just, you've asked me a question, I'll answer you.
You answer me then.
Okay, I actually thought, through actual miscommunication, that person who turned up was a representative of actual community centre type management system. I thought that he had come to actually look at it, to take it over. And I was in that misconception of that.
So as Vice Chair...
And I was quite pleased with what he said.
So as Vice Chair...
report.
So as Vice Chair...
But I am only one person on this committee. Other members of the committee wanted to actually run it ourselves. That is up to us to come to a decision ourselves. You walked away because we didn't accept option one that you offered.
Which was?
Well, I'm not saying it because it's up to you to know it.
What was option one?
Well, you wrote the report.
So what are you suggesting that I was trying to suggest? What I did, Councillor Silverstone, I spent a considerable amount of time
I know you did.
on a mandate from this place to go and talk to the MCA, which I did with Kevin Crook. I spent a considerable amount of time after that preparing minutes, reports, risk assessments and budgets.
Yeah.
And what happened on the night of the 22nd of November, they were shuffled and put under folders and various other places and were not considered in not one moment were they considered. Now you still haven't answered why, as the elected Vice Chair of this group, you have allowed that building to continue to open when this is in the public domain.
You're asking me my personal opinion, and I'm not going to give it, because there is lots of different opinions around this table.
That's fine.
One of my actual opinions is that we closed it. But it's not for me to say. It's a committee's option.
But is it not also, councillor, is it not also a community decision? Wouldn't it not be prudent at this time to go into some form of public consultation and allow the community the option to look at what options you've got on the table? Because as you sit here at the moment, you've got the option of running it yourself at a cost of in excess of 100,000 a year minimum, or you've got the option of going with a third party.
Well, I want to go with the third party, but that's not just me. It's nothing to do with, I mean, we've all got our own views, and that was my view. But I can't say what I want to do. I've got to represent the committee, and we haven't actually come to a decision yet, because it's in a state of flux. Because these people that want to take over and manage the place, we hadn't actually been able to contact them until we got the lease, because we didn't know what the state of the place was in. We didn't want to actually start looking for people in case we couldn't put it out for tender.
So have you got a lease that you can offer them to look at, a third party?
Not at this time.
Pardon? Yeah.
Well, it's a dead simple yes or no, isn't it?
Yeah.
You've either got one or you haven't got one.
Yeah. We have got a lease
You
now.
have got a lease that you can offer to a third party. So
Yeah.
you've got third party interest.
Yes.
So why is, if you've got third party interest and you've got an interest to run it yourselves, why can't that be put on the table for some community inclusion?
Right. Community actual thing, it would take too long. That place would have to be closed while we did it.
How much a week is it costing you to run it?
I don't know.
I don't know yet.
No.
A lot of money.
So you're prepared
Oh,
to
yes.
sit round this table and allow the funds of this community to go running down the drain while you decide what you're going to do?
And how dangerous is it? Because there's children going there.
Pardon?
There's children go in there currently. There's parties and children.
Oh no.
So
We
how
need to know
dangerous
the
is it?
risks,
The public
don't
need
we?
to know the dangers.
It's all being hidden, and our children are in there.
The state of that place, we couldn't go in there while the other leaseholders were.
But you're in there now and you're still keeping it open.
Yeah, but I mean...
With respect, that isn't true.
No.
There is nothing that has stopped this parish council from going into that building. There's correspondence on record from the previous operator asking for a meeting with this council. Fact. There was a meeting held with the previous operator that set the scene for an amicable transition from the MCA to whomever this council decided that they were going to use. We've been told in all the time that I've sat around that table
Oh,
that
2
the
weeks
parish
ago,
council,
yeah.
right,
Go on then.
that the parish council were sole trustees of the charity. They clearly are not. So under their own governance, they actually can't run the place under the charity that they've been telling and reporting and minuting that they were going to run it under. It's a shambles at best. A complete shambles that is going to risk funds within the council that this...
Right, okay, you pointed a finger at me, right, and I accept, as I represent this committee. What you are talking about now, I, personally, was going to stand down because it wasn't actually taken that they would close it down. Because I wanted that, but it's not up to me. That's why I was prepared to walk away. And this is my final actual place at chair, because I'm going. And I agree that it
Sorry,
needs to be
you're going?
Yeah.
And you've got no chair either?
I have got interest.
No chair.
No, a chair. You're the vice chair, you're going,
Yeah.
and there's no chair. And
But
I'm confused.
because if nobody stands for chair, I will stay. But I want somebody to take over. The day they don't take over, if somebody takes over, I am gone. Because the simple reason is I want that community centre run in an effective way
So
for the
you
community.
feel passionate about it too?
Look, if you've seen the proposals and things like that, I think they're a good idea. of these people who want to take over the system.
Well, we don't know that as
I know.
people that-
So okay, how many
It's
third
not-
party
it's not-
interests have you had?
Has it been put out to tender, or is that?
No, it won't have been. Yeah. How many third party interests are there? You don't need to name names. How many are there in number? Two.
Yeah.
So you see, that's interesting as well, because in the same exchange of correspondence with a current sitting councillor, and I quote again, the only third party to look at it in the recent months have said that they won't take it on. No name. The other, whoever they are months away from a deal. So where is the transparency, the scrutiny, the consultation?
Nobody's walked away from any deal. One we're pending a meeting with.
But the person that sits around that table as a councillor is getting into correspondence in the background, making these statements in writing. So when we come to a full disclosure situation in a period of time in the future, all of this relevant information will be in the public domain. Likewise, the three councillors who have corresponded with me independently and told me under no circumstances are they going to vote for an increase in precept. Now, I'm not a mathematician nor an accountant, but I don't see how you can continue to be throwing £7,500 to £10,000 a month at that community centre while you make your minds up what you're doing without either seriously affecting the precept or absolutely destroying any budget to enhance this community on behalf of this community.
Yeah.
So I would leave you with that to consider because my 15 minutes.
Right, okay. Margaret.
Sorry, I wasn't going to speak, but I hope you'll just allow me for a moment. The only thing I would say, I've heard some stuff about the Markfield Recreation Ground Trust in particular. I am an ex-councillor, as you know, but for anyone who doesn't know, I have the full information on the Markfield Recreation Ground Trust, which I've worked with for 4 years. I am more than happy, and I have made the offer in the past, as I have with my knowledge over the community centre. I have made that offer even when I left the Parish Council on the 5th of September. So I just would like it publicly recorded that I have made an offer in the past to help with this, and also if you want any information on the Markfield Recreation Ground Trust, then with the greatest of respect, I'm the person that knows it from beginning to end, and you only have to ask.
Thank you, Mark, because I mean, you was absolutely an absolute wonder to the actual council in terms of what you did and all the roles you played whilst you was on here.
Yeah,
and
I
you
have
drove
attempted
everything forward
actually.
there. Thank you for
I
that.
don't know why Councillor Lay isn't here, but I did contact Councillor Lay yesterday because I saw the agenda, and again I made the offer to Councillor Lay that if there is anything that wanted clarifying over the Markfield Recreation Ground Trust, because the council, Councillor Lay and I as chair and vice chair, in 2019-2020 we did take advice from a charity lawyer in Ashby-de-la-Zouch who told us exactly what the situation was with the Markfield Recreation Ground Trust and exactly what needed to happen. So, you know, I made the offer, I make the offer. Please, I'm more than happy to sit round the table with anybody. I've got the knowledge on the community centre and the Markfield Recreation Ground Trust from 4 years ago, right the way through.
Right, thank you, Margaret, and we'll get back to you on
Sorry,
that.
I wasn't going to say anything.
And now, one reason I joined the committee, because I am not a politician, I don't know about commercial, protocol for councils and things like that. I joined this as a member of the village, wanted to look after its environment because I'm a biologist, and also help the community as much as I can. And so this politics that you're playing now, which I agree with, is not
Whoa, stop, immediately cease. There is no political agenda on my part, and please minute that and record it. There is absolutely no political agenda. I have only got one singular purpose, and that is to ensure that this community is not in any way impeded by the actions of this group of people sat round this table. And by that, the clerk, on more than one occasion, in my presence, in this meeting, has said that if we run that community centre ourselves, the precept will have to go up by 100 to 150,000 minimum. I think that's light. I think it's quite considerably more than that. I prepared for you, members, an operational budget. And that operational budget, to run that place for a year, was probably £25,000 light. So your operational cost to run that, and I gave you the opportunity on the 22nd of November to scrutinise that as deeply and as intensely as you wanted and to pull it to pieces. To this date, I have not had one comment back about that. And do you know why? Because nobody's had the courtesy to look at it. So that's question number one for me. Question number two is, I can't, in any good conscience, consider that an option from whatever third-party provider to provide some rental income in the future, which safeguards the precept not having to go up exponentially, can be considered to be a bad offer and can be considered to be less favourable than trying to run it yourselves. Because if you'd got any real intent on running it yourselves, you wouldn't be in this shambolic mess that you're in now, and you wouldn't be running it illegally, and you wouldn't be running it in the face of 32 non-compliances. Not one or two, there's 32 in this report, and some of them are health and safety issues. You do realise what your legal obligations are as trustees in all of this, don't you?
I do, Mr. Taylor. Thank you very much.
I don't think you do, because if you did, you wouldn't be acting in the manner that you are.
No, I actually agree with what you're saying. When we took over the lease, I was quite expecting for us to straight away contact one of these people, management companies, who wanted to take it over. We did do, we haven't got together, because don't forget, we only meet once a month, and things like that. And that it's a slow process and things like that. But we've also
it's a slow process, councillor, but it took me and Kevin 10 days from meeting the MCA to coming forward with a tangible report that was minuted and that had got some basis to it for a discussion. That discussion was quelled on the 22nd of November. And it continues to. What contact have you had with the MCA since the 20th of November? What contact has this council had with the MCA since the 20th of November when it sat? I'll make it easy for you. Absolutely none.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So has it, can I just ask, since
You voted
you've
for it
done
to stay
it,
open.
has it made us any money? Or what has it cost us? Just out of interest.
I haven't had to order anything yet.
No.
It's cost a fortune in legal fees and it's costing a fortune per week because the heating system's shot in there, there's no controls. Tonight when it freezes you'll probably wake up in the morning because there'll be leaks because there's no frost control on the heating system.
Who actually voted to keep the community centre open? I mean, whose decision was that? Does that need to be done on a vote by you councillors? Because I'd like to know who actually...
Not naming them.
Not naming
the
councillors,
numbers.
but was there a vote to say let's keep it open?
I didn't want to keep going, so you talk to another person.
I appreciate that, but at your meeting, surely somebody should have voted to say, okay, well, let's keep it open. Is that not what happens in a democracy?
Yes, and I voted against it.
So there was an open vote to keep it open, and the majority said keep it open.
Yes.
Right.
And how's it being run? Who's in there running it?
Look, I was on the way
No,
out
I'm
of the
only
door,
concerned
so
because
don't
I've
be
got-
asking me, because I want
I
my hands on it.
understand that, but nobody else is telling us. You're the only one that's sat there speaking.
Can I just
I'll
ask-
be perfectly honest with you why I'm not saying a lot, and that is because I'm feeling intimidated. I suffer with anxiety as it is anyway.
So do
I've got
I.
someone videoing me, and you're clearly all here throwing questions
God,
at
no,
us.
this is the
I'd be
first I've
happy
heard
to-
about
I'd be
it.
happy to meet with you you outside, but I'm not prepared to sit here.
Problem with
Why-
that,
why
the problem with
outside?
that,
The problem with that
Rebecca,
is it's not
that's-
transparency.
That's very gallant.
This is transparency.
That's very gallant and it's very appreciated. But what it is also, it's another divergent of another councillor going off on a tangent, similar to what perhaps we could suggest that Councillor Crook is, because you still not answered the question about whether or not this council is undertaking to offer it as a warm hub and a community space, as Councillor Crook has told me that is the case.
It's not
Have you
been
found-
warm for a number of years.
But have you voted on that as a proposal? Is that real, or is that just his fantasy, or is that is a hypothetical wish that he has? And how is he going to be funded? Because clearly the place is hemorrhaging money every time you put the lights on. The average hourly revenue take for all the hours that are booked in that place is around £7 an hour. It doesn't even cover the wages of the people who you now employ. That's how chaotic and shambolic the whole thing is.
Thank you for your comments, Mr Taylor.
Thank you.
And we'll go on to the next step one, which is councillor vacancies. And for the resignation of, as said, S. Taylor. And the clerk's report says that obviously you can't be actually voted on because of the because there's going to be election next year on May the 23rd, but you can be co-opted on. So anybody who wants to join the actual council can be actually co-opted on and work with them.
Well, we've got currently 2 vacancies.
Yeah.
The vacancy relating to the resignation of the former chairman,
Yeah.
Mrs Williams.
Mrs. Williams, yeah.
That is currently being advertised, as I've said, and the closing date for receipt of applications is the 19th of December. As far as the vacancy that we've now got in relation to the resignation of Mr Taylor, we can't fill that by co-option because no, we can't, because it's too close to the election. We're not allowed to do anything about that. We've been advised by Hinckley and Bosworth they won't advertise it as a vacancy because it is within 6 months of an election. So we can fill 1 vacancy, and as I say, it's currently out for advertisement. We've had a couple of requests for information which have been sent out. So with a closing date of the 19th of December, we'd probably be looking to co-opt at your meeting in January.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. And other complaints, it said the Vice Chair is going to give a review of that. But I don't know these 2 ladies. Are you the 2 ladies?
We've been coming for about a year and a half now.
Yeah. We've actually written a response to you, haven't we? We said you received a response, haven't you?
Did you write that? Did you
Yes,
write that
I did.
response to us? Yeah.
Yeah. I can write.
No, I just the reason I'm asking
Yeah,
because there was a point in it that wasn't addressed about
because I went through all of the points that you made and lots of things, and then I obviously I didn't type it because I typed my own response. But a lot of the things that you actually said is like any complaints about the actual Parish Council has to go to the borough. But I mentioned that in the letter.
To the monitoring office.
Yeah, and so if you want any complaints about any of the people on the committee and things like that, you've got to go to them. Because it's like you say, how can we actually look at ourselves and criticise ourselves and things like that? You need somebody from a different actual part of the county council to actually, or the borough council to actually do that. So, I've got your letter in front of me actually. And the other thing, like you said, about one thing that what's been on the committee is also the planning proposals. We only meet once a month. Well, we don't actually not look at those. I mean, me and other members of the actual committee go out and look at all these and review them and give our opinion on them so we can go back to them. Like the one that was just mentioned earlier, that we looked at that and actually gave our opinion, so we can give that to the Borough Council and so forth. So, I mean, we're very active on that, because quite a few of our members, because me wanting to look up the environment, I'm really, really keen on that, is looking at planning proposals that come through. And the other one about...
Just to interject there, I appreciate what you've just said, Edwin, but on the day that we sat here listening to that, we had to leave the meeting because we were so angry at your comments about can we not just go along with the neighbours' objections? That they were your words. That's not surely how you operate an objection. Like you say, you asked for an extension of time, but your words were to Kevin, can we not just go along with the neighbours' objections because we only had the next day to answer? You know, that was more my complaint. Hearing that, we had to walk out the door.
Well, I tell you, I'm not used to politics.
But it's not, listen, we don't come to the meeting, we come to the meetings because we care about the community, that's it.
Protocol, sorry, protocol.
I've lived in Markfield since 1990, I care about the village, and I've been coming to the meetings because I care.
Yeah,
and then
like
sitting there and watching some of it, I was like, oh my God, can you imagine if that was your house, that you were about to have that extension, and you realised, I could not believe it. And I don't claim to have any politics background, political background even.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to planning proposals and things like that, all we can do is give our opinion of how we see it as a committee in behalf of the actual members of the village, because it's not us that make their final decisions. It's people at borough or county council or whatever. We've got no voting rights on it. We can just give an objection to it.
But you can't just say, oh, let's just sweep it under the carpet and just go ahead without knowing the information. At the same meeting, it took the clerk about 20 minutes looking through paperwork for a deadline to only find out that the deadline was the next day. How would that not be picked up?
We'd actually looked at that proposal that you're talking about, but it was that month had passed. We looked at it at the beginning of the month or whatever, and then, I mean, but we do give our opinions before the date. Well, you've got to realise that it's got to go to the whole of the actual members of the committee before we can actually put forward a decision. Okay, the deadline was the next day. But, okay, so in hindsight, we've got to say, okay, right, if it's late, well, I must have an extra meeting and stuff like that to make sure that our views on this proposal go to the borough for them to consider before the deadline. And I totally agree. But we are amateurs, we're just villagers. We don't get paid for this, we volunteer.
I know, oh gosh, I absolutely know that. Which is why
behind
it needs to be transparent.
If you do not believe that you're competent enough to do the job and sit in the post, then you shouldn't be sat round the table.
I'm not going to be.
You cannot
Thank you very much.
You cannot hide behind volunteer
It's not
status.
singling you, Edwin, you know, that applies to everyone.
I was a volunteer, Edwin, and I gave 120 hours of my life between the 10th and the 20th of November in good faith, in the belief that it was a community-spirited gesture.
We started coming along because of the Jelson thing, and that's when we started. And the response we got at the door was, "What are you doing here?" That wasn't very welcoming. This is about us all. This is all for our village.
Right, another thing. Let's just go. I'll just go through very quickly. About you mentioned that about meetings and things like that, and the tree that's on London Road. We totally agree with you. But it's on the highways land. It's not on ours.
Edwin,
and we can't touch that.
I appreciate what you're saying, but legally, if there was to be a fatality because of that tree, the parish council would have been responsible, because I, as a resident, had reported it on many occasions, how dangerous it was.
Yeah, and we've
a wheelchair, a service user in a wheelchair...
I'm sorry, but I've got to say something here, because it's going beyond ridiculous.
Yeah.
The trees on the road are county council owned.
Yeah.
Therefore, you have to pass on what we get onto the county council, who then should take it to their planning meeting and discuss it there and decide what they're going to do with it.
Yeah.
We cannot just go in and say, right, we want it down, or we want it crown lifting,
Yeah.
or whatever. It's down to their arboriculturalist to
Yeah.
have a look at it and see.
Yeah.
And if they don't come back with the right answer, then we can't be held responsible because they are the ruling authority.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I sat on Lincoln Bosworth for 12 years, and I know what I'm talking about because I was on planning for 3 of those years.
So excuse me, when the public come and mention it, is it not your job as councillors to go and find that information out so there isn't a fatality? Equally, if the people come to you and say, can we do this, i.e. opening the back gates, is that not part of the responsibility of the council to go, okay, we need to take this on board? Because
when you pass, say you pass the complaint on to me, I would bring it back to this parish council, who then would listen to the discussion.
yeah,
It would then have to go to the relevant authority, either the borough or the county council, whichever land it is on. If
right,
it's on the highway, it's usually county council. And then they would have to send their arboriculturalist out to have a look at it, and then it would be decided by them what they were going to do with it. Once it leaves us and goes to them, it's out of our hands. I'm sorry, but that's how the system works.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it doesn't.
Yeah.
It does
Sorry.
not work. As a parish council, if there's an imminent danger to a service user, that tree needed cutting back. That's all it was. It was a few branches so that people could visibly
Once
see
it's
the
crown
oncoming
lifted.
traffic.
We wouldn't be able to touch it by law because it's not
We can't
ours.
touch it, no. It has to be the authority who is responsible for those trees
Yeah.
that do it.
could you not press that to those authorities and say,
Well,
look,
we do when we pass it on.
so couldn't that be just a very simple reply to that question that was asked?
So that lies with the county council to get their act together and get out and get it done.
Yeah.
And sometimes we have to contact them more than once.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was late into the meeting, but has contact been made with the county council regarding this tree and a response been received about it?
The tree's been cut now, Dave.
Has that been
Yeah.
cut? Thank you.
I can see your concerns, ladies, honestly, but that's how the system works,
Right,
and there's no
yeah.
way round it, unfortunately.
I mean, the trees that we actually have got in our care, I wouldn't say own them, but they've got in our care, we are responsible for them, and we have got our own actual tree surgeon to actually look after them, and they do a great job looking after them. But one might say, we couldn't send them to that tree because we will be breaking the law. We probably got prosecuted for damaging the council's property.
Okay, so if a child, heaven forbid, died and the correspondence haven't been going round and that's been mentioned in a meeting, who would be liable for that death?
But we've already notified them umpteen times about those trees.
So they would
times,
be,
yeah.
it would be in their responsibility then,
Yeah, it's
not
their
the parish council to
No,
kind of
not
keep
the
nagging
parish.
at it.
No,
On behalf of the actual parish, we have actually said this is a danger, and that they sometimes they don't even come back to you. I mean, the Highways Commission is well, I could go on for a week about the highways part of the county council, but we can't actually do anything without. If they own it, they have got to do something about it.
yeah,
And we can't insist, we ask them to review it. And that's what we do.
Okay.
But I totally agree with you, but we can't do anything. We keep the silence. We can actually go and keep pushing your views that it's dangerous as many times as you like. But until they react to it, you still can't do anything. And if, like you say, somebody gets injured because of those
Yeah.
trees, it goes to the county council, not us. Because
So-
our process has gone through that way.
That's fine. Thank you.
Right. So that's been actually dealt with and stuff like that. I've gone through all that and stuff like that, but I just wanted to bring those up, especially about the tree and the complaints about my behaviour and other people's behaviour on the committee. If you want to take that further, you just have to go to the Market Boswell's.
Hinkley. Not Mark.
Sorry, I've just been to rugby match over there this afternoon. So yeah, and talking about that on, we've actually talked about the sole trustees and stuff like that, which Mr Taylor actually brought up. So
But can I suggest that until I've taken up Margaret's offer of help, I think if we defer that until I've clarified things, Margaret, if you don't mind.
Yeah. And then we'll get things rolling on that, Mr Taylor.
Yeah, and then I'll bring it back to the next committee.
Yeah, okay.
So just to be clear then, at the moment the parish council will be liable for rates on the community centre whilst they're operating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that money comes out of our precept.
Out of your precept.
Lovely.
And talk about trees. We've got a tree surgeon's report, which is absolutely brilliant report on the trees that are under our care, and majority of them are in excellent condition. There's some that will need actually addressing it soon, but what we're going to do is, because there's so many of them, we're just going to organise a subcommittee and stuff like that, and I'd have a part of that even if I leave the committee, because I did my PhD on trees, it would be great to actually look at them, and those that need actual care in the near future, we'll actually address that and get the tree surgeons to actually make them safe for the foreseeable future.
So, Edwin, are you proposing then that we set up a working group to look at the reports and come back with recommendations for work and budgets?
Yeah, because I'd actually help with that even if we need the committee. Yeah, I mean, I propose it, yeah. Anybody else? Bill?
Yeah, fine. I just can't get my head around this.
I know, I don't know.
It's stupid.
How can you suggest that it's stupid? I'm quite offended by that comment, Councillor.
Who's he?
My comment, that's it, I've said it.
Can I just say then, are we going to set up a working group to look at the tree report and to come back to the council? So is there any, so you want to go on it, Edwin?
Yeah, I'll go on it, obviously, because I mean, it's my great interest anyway.
Yeah, anybody else want to go on it?
I'm happy to support it.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Yeah.
I would suggest Kevin as chair of planning might be an appropriate member to speak to him if members are supportive of that.
Mm-hmm.
I think we need to take his views on board.
Yeah.
Because again, he's got commitment issues, hasn't he? So
Yeah.
I wouldn't
So,
volunteer for something in his absence.
So are we going to say, what about, you interested, Bill?
No.
Nora?
Depends when it is.
Well, it would be, working groups can be held
Anytime.
I'd suggest that we need to get it done as promptly as we can, so that we can feed into the budget process, get the work organised, and also just to make sure that there are no dangerous issues in there that we need to pick up.
So do you want to?
So if we could do that in January,
Yeah.
with a view to reporting back to February's
Because
meeting.
in the meantime, I can go around looking at them anyway.
Sure.
Yeah, because I want to do that. Because when I saw the report, I was smiled at how, what in good health most of the majority of our trees are in. Yeah.
Okay, and shall I ask if Kevin is happy to be a member? And that would give you 4. That would probably be sufficient.
That should be.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. You've got a copy of it, Chris. Yeah, because it came out.
Yes, it came out. Can we just make a note in the minutes, 'cause rather than these things can drift sometimes. So if we could say that we definitely want to have a report back to February. February's meeting. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Because we're going to get into nesting season where we can't do any work on the trees, and so we need to act quite
because they'll have no leaves on them.
Okay. All right. That's fine. Okay.
The Bingley and Bottler Space Protection Order, the consultation.
Yes, if members were remember, they sent it out to us to ask us if the parish wanted to add or withdraw anything from it, and we responded that we were happy the way it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
And so now they've sent it out formally for
Yeah.
consultation.
Yeah, I read it this evening actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a good thing actually because it's especially the actual protection of space. Building all these houses is but still.
My understanding, Chair, is that there was a very extensive consultation exercise prior to the
Yeah.
SPO being put in place, and I certainly, as a resident, haven't been aware of there being any gaps in that. So from that point of view, there's nothing really to feed back, I don't think, is there?
No,
We
no.
should continue to support it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, because it's it's an interesting report actually. It's nice to see that they considered that. I think quite honestly. Now, planning applications, as I say, there's two that we've got on here. One is the retrospective application for the boundary wall constructed on site at White Hill, Whittick Road.
Copy.
Apologies, Chair.
Okay. Now, I've not been out to this proposal because I haven't had time, but I've been out there before.
What, Whitehill?
Yeah. And I couldn't see anything that was that we could actually comment on, quite honestly, to say that it's gone ahead anyway. We're not going to knock it down.
No.
And it's a boundary thing anyway.
It's a stone wall anyway, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. And the other one is erection of the canopy extension of the south elevation of 21 Shore Lane, Markfield. Now, I haven't been to see that because I haven't had time, because that's down by Upton's, isn't it? Opposite Upton's.
I think it is Upton's, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is Upton's.
It's Upton's itself, yeah.
Yeah.
And that'd be an industrial one, so
Well, just to let you know, I've received no comments
No.
from any residents or anything objecting
No.
or raising any concerns from either application.
yeah. Yeah, I haven't been in there on 18 times, I understand where it is now. Yeah. Right.
So what are we doing? Are we making any observations on either of them? Are we happy with both of them and are raising no objections? Are we no comments to make?
There's no objections, but
No
section
objection
106
on either of them
coming
actually.
to Upton's.
What, for a canopy?
I wouldn't have thought it's big enough, is it?
No.
Because it's a steel company, I'll tell you what it is, it's, so they labour a lot of the stuff outside, so they want a canopy so they can extend their loading area, which is fair play, then they can shoot them up before they come out of the canopy, or pull those actual colours over.
Chair, we could ask the question legitimately. Are there
Yeah.
any section 106 issues and implications for the parish?
That's what I was asking, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
just seek clarification.
Yeah. And that is the end of the public meeting.
I just need to pass a
Could I make a
resolution.
suggestion?
Can we say
And you might have
Oh,
to turn it down. Given the fact of what's gone on already in the meeting regarding some information that I have regarding Community Centre Markfield Recreation Ground Trust, I think Lorraine can bear me out. You are at liberty to invite someone into your private session for the next item, if it can aid your discussion.
Whether you'd like to stop.
Well, it isn't whether I like to stop, it's whether the committee would
Well,
like to
yeah,
invite me
well,
for that particular item, and I will be
Yeah.
guided by Lorraine.
But if we invite you, would you like to stop?
I will stop if you invite me, and I
Okay,
can't
yeah,
stop
so
unless
for-
you invite
yeah.
me.
For item 13, yeah, by all means, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Are you all closing that? Yeah. Thank you.